closing ratio is like 80, high 80%. So most of the clients that they're calling us, they're not calling 20 people. We build that relationship, we build that value already into that business.
Our win rate on new leads is so much lower than the win rate on referral or past customer, and yet we invest everything in the new lead.
Your best client is your existing client because you don't have to prove yourself. They already trust you. They already know you. I think that a very large amount of painters paint a house and they walk away. There is no follow-up.
Welcome back to another episode of Price, Sell, Paint. My name is Michael Murray. I'm the owner of Textbook Painting. As always, I'm joined by John Bryant, the owner at PaintScout. Today, we are lucky to have an esteemed guest, Juan Vasquez, the owner of Illusions, Inc., a successful painting company in Monterey, California, as well as a PCA board member and an accomplished speaker within our industry, fellow podcast host, former PaintScout X speaker. Juan, it's good to see you. Welcome back. How are things? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hey, thank you for having me, Michael. Well, I'm happy to be here. As you mentioned, my name is Juan Vasquez. I do own a business here in Monterey, California. We established Illusions, back then it was Illusions Painting, established Illusions Inc. 20 years ago.
Wow.
So we've seen a share of, different trends and stuff throughout the industry. I mean, I'm a father of two. I have a 20-year-old son and a 18-year-old daughter that is going to college this year. So I was so ready to retire. Then I saw how much it's going to cost for her education. I was like, never mind, never mind.
Get back to work.
Oh, yeah. So here we are.
There you go.
Well, what kind of work do you guys do in Monterey? I know it's like higher end stuff, right? Usually, or
Yeah.
what's that?
So we specialize in, so we live in the Pebble Beach, Carmel area. If you're not familiar with that, in California, it's a very high-end market. So in order for us to not have so much competition, we kind of dug into the very extreme specialty finishes. And so that kind of weeds out a lot of the competition. So we work on very exclusive homes. We do a lot of exclusive finishes, Venetian plasters, metal patinas, very high-end stuff. So that's our bread and butter.
Cool. And you said kind of, I think last time we talked, you've worked for a few celebrities in your time, but do you have to
Yeah.
sign NDAs to do that? Is that how that works, or now they're
Uh,
buddies of yours?
Everybody, I have to, I mean, I say a good 70% of our clients, we sign an NDA for all those jobs.
Wow.
So
That's wild. Yeah.
we have internal pictures, but we can't show them. Internal notes, but we can't show them. Celebrities, business owners, a lot of oil money, people from around the world. We never meet them. We usually deal with a designer, an architect, a caretaker, property management. So they pay
Yeah,
well.
interesting.
So we're not so crazy about meeting them. So it's okay.
I've
We can be
actually
in the
thought about
dark.
because of that, like our last conversation when we chatted the PCA, I've
Hmm.
actually thought a lot about just getting people to sign NDAs whenever I need something done. Just because, I feel like it's a real
Yeah.
power move.
To
Like,
pretend you're a big deal.
yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
why not,
Exactly.
right? I mean,
Wow.
hey,
This
fake it till you
never
make it.
happened. I was never here.
It's only an illusion.
It's an
It was
illusion.
only
See,
an illusion. I'm
that's why they
telling you,
like you.
man.
They like you, Juan, because you were never there.
I was never there. Exactly. Well, we
That's
actually
funny.
have. Everyone in our company has to sign an NDA for the same
Mhm.
reason.
Mhm.
So, yeah, I guess it makes us kind of important.
Yeah, it's kind of fun, right?
Yeah,
NDAs,
exactly.
super fun. So, so you've this company you've built. Did you guys start in high end finishings, or you said you kind of molded it over time to kind of
Um,
get to that point?
well, I mean, a little bit of background. I started painting when I was 16 years old out of necessity. And I worked for a company that we did commercial and we traveled the States for about 4 years. And then I landed a job with a company that does the same kind of houses that we do. And I worked there for about 4 years. and then I didn't want to be a painter. I didn't want to be 60 pushing a brush. And so I had the skills. I've learned how to do a lot of the custom stuff. And so I went on my own in 2005. And so I started a company back in 2005. And of course, in the beginning, I did everything I could, because you had to have a job. And then little by little, we started just kind of focusing more on the high end. And I think the last probably 12 to 15 years, we've been very focused on the high end.
Cool.
Juan, do you
I think
do
Michael
most
and
of
I,
the sales?
So I don't do the sales anymore. I something that I've been wanting to do is I want to exit the company. Like I said, I've been this is all I've ever known. So I think I'm kind of getting to a point where, well, it's been kind of like a work in progress, but I want to do something else. I want to put my energy into something else, and the PCA has been great. So if we go back to the sales, now I have Jose, my business partner. He joined the company back in 2018. He does the high-end sales and the relationship and the training. And then I also have Kevin, which is my nephew. He's doing the sales. We're doing some more res repaint and the smaller projects. And we also have a project manager that helps with some of the sales. So I don't do any of those sales anymore. I will go to the job and I will assist, but I draw the line.
I think, yeah, Michael and I I think from PaintScout X, I think we're both quite curious to learn a little bit more about your your philosophy about it, because I think there's
Hmm.
a lot to that about aligning. How do you sell to people who require you to sign NDAs, are looking for high end finishes, all of those things. I wanted to start before that though by just talking a little bit about your involvement with the PCA. You mentioned that, and I know you're at an event yesterday in Phoenix,
Yeah.
and that's been something you've done for a couple of years now, right?
Yeah, 3 years
Yeah,
now. I've done this for 3 years. Well, I can do a little recap about the
yeah.
PCA. I can mention for about 12 years in the business, I was the painter. I had about 5 to 6 guys, and the way I structure was two crews. One will start prepping. I will come and do the finish, then we'll move on to the next project, and so on, right? And it was great. Most companies do it like that. But at that point, I realized that I had a job, not a business. And Josh Abramson from Albright Painting
Mhm.
put one of these Sherwin-Williams events in San Luis Obispo, and I happened to go there. And he talked about he was a high school dropout, and he actually did the speak engagements for Sherwin-Williams, and he talked about the PCA, and it that little light went on in my head, and I attended my first PCA event in 2018, Galveston, Texas. And at that point, I think our company was very small. Walk in there and walked out of there with a whole different view of the business. So that started the journey 3 years ago. Well, before that, I bugged Nick so much that I kept like, Nick, if you ever need something, I'm your man. I'm your man. And they got so tired of me. They're like, okay, fine, come in. So I got invited to be on the board about 4 years ago. One of the main things I do there is I'm more advocating for the Hispanic community. As you guys know, it's between 67 and 70% of our industry right now. So that's more of my involvement. And I also sit at a advisory board for Sharon Williams, which is for the Hispanic community as well. And so we help Sharon Williams, advising them on, I think there's 12 of us around the country that we get together. And when they want to come up with some kind of like system or anything that they want to, send out to the public, we sit down and we give them the contractor advice and, you know, to help them what there's going to be for us. And so I love the involvement. I was able to kind of take. my business to that level thanks to PCA and Sherwin Williams, that I want to be able to communicate this more to our community and actually, try to help this community, this industry to rise up a little bit better, a little bit more.
What's that been like? I know it. You know, the we talk a lot about the Spanish community in painting, and I think there's been a change. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. But as like somebody who gets to try to coach this community, where do you see like some of the biggest changes happening over the last couple of years?
God, I mean, 4 years ago when I went to the PCA, well, no,
Mm,
4 years ago in the PCA, we probably had about probably 10 Hispanic contractors there. This last couple of years, we had over 100, 200. So by putting these PCA en Español events, there's going to be our fourth one this year, bringing over 200 contractors together has really waken up the interest in them of to professionalize. Like I said, I understand because I started there, that we have a technician mentality, and thankfully because of all the social media, the great systems like PaintScout that are really making it easier for us to understand. But sometimes it's the culture. I think that now the PCA is investing in this, Sherwin Williams is invested, and a lot of these other companies are understanding that these are our clients. This is the industry. There's a lot of need there. Some of the older companies are ran by dad, and I've seen a lot of the son, the daughter now taking over, and that is really shifting the industry because now these kids, I call them kids because I'm old, but they're really coming in with this new era, and it's that's what's making that shift, you know, and it's really exciting to see. That's what I've noticed lately.
As one follow-up question, sorry, Michael. It's in that conversation with like the maybe the parent or the father starting the business, and then the kids coming in. Uh, has there been a lot of tension in that in the community of like new ideas versus old way of running the business, and or has it been pretty um, understood that there's new ways of doing things?
No, it's been a lot of tension. I mean,
Yeah.
as many, Hispanic, people, the way we were raised, we're like very stubborn, and there's a certain
Mm,
way to do things, and
mm,
that's the way we do it, right? I've had, you know, a few people come to me, and I think that's what the whole PCA en Español has been great because now these younger generations are seeing everything that's going on, but when they bring or they want to tell their parents, they're like they don't see it, right? But when they come into one of these events and they're speaking in their own language, it's their whole culture. I've had a couple of those guys just break down, and
mm,
say, my son, my daughter's been telling me all this, and I come here and I feel like an idiot, that I didn't listen to him. So that is really what I see that is breaking the barrier. And I have a few of those guys that I talk to regularly, and my goodness, their business has just flourished because of that. So I guess it's a very small movement, but it is catching up, and it's catching up very quick.
yeah, that's cool. Very cool.
I'd love to just transition back a little bit, right, to the types of clients that you're working with. I think a lot of painting contractors all, aspire to be able to like charge at the higher price points, work with, nicer jobs, maybe bigger
Sign
jobs,
NDAs. You know.
Sign
have signed
NDAs.
NDAs, right?
Yeah.
So they
We
could
got
maybe
time
work
with
at
the
nut shops.
NDAs, right? We're doing the NDAs. I want to see you
So
NDA, Todd.
Yeah, it's coming. Don't worry. They'll come after the show.
it's kind of a big deal. And so like how does somebody do that, right? If somebody's listening to this podcast and they're the owner doing the sales, or they're a sales estimator at a painting company, and they're focused on, I don't know, just like mid market, right? Not like the
Mhm.
higher end stuff, and they want to get to that point. What types of like tips and tricks and advice would you have for somebody to move up market in terms of the types of painting projects they're doing?
Well, I think it starts. John and I had this conversation at the pool, at the last PCA, and it
Mhm.
starts by understanding your client,
Mm,
right? I mean, he gave me some really good pointers on all this, and that really where it starts. You gotta really understand who your client is, and then you want to sell to your client. I know that I when I say that I've seen a lot of trends in the industry, it's like now there's so much marketing, there's so much Google this, Google that, Facebook, but these clients will not go find, they're not gonna find you on Facebook, they're not gonna find you on Google, and I've seen that a lot of this has really shifted how the business has been because now you want to have a lot of leads. The way we do our business, we don't want a lot of leads. We want really valuable leads.
mm,
And how we do that is we have a good relationship with designers,
mm,
architects, caretakers, like I said, very high-end GCs, general contractors.
mhm,
Because again, our clients, they don't, these type of clients, they're not gonna ask for a price. They're not gonna ask, how much is it gonna cost me? They're like, can you do it? Have
mm,
you built a track? How do we do it? It's like we do a lot of trainings. So we get trained by a lot of companies. We see a trend, something that's trending that will work for our clients, and we'll go full on. We'll
mm.
invest in that. You can say like Fine Pensura, like
Okay.
Scout Naval, like those companies who are very exclusive. We'll reach out to them and say, hey, this is my client. I want to sell to them. I want to sell your product. And so I don't want to buy from them. I want to become, like I want to partner with them. I said, look, you help me train me, and I'm going to go sell your product. Help me sell your product better. And so when I do that, now we post that on social media, our website. And so now our clients are seeing that. So now
Mm,
we're not looking for them, they're looking for us. So
cool.
that's basically our how we've seen it. So I try the whole Google thing, and it doesn't work for us.
Mm.
It did not work for us in our line of a business that we are. I don't know if that explains kind of what you were asking.
Yeah, a little bit for sure. What are some of the things though that you do to, say generate more business or find more of these relationships, right? So one of what I hear is you have to just do the work. Like you have to be able to deliver, on high quality finishes, fine paints of Europe, and some of, maybe more challenging level of work, level of
Yeah,
finish and things. But, I think, again, there's a lot of people that can do that work, but can't necessarily sell that work. And so, like,
exactly.
how does somebody who can do that work be able to have the like sales skills to command top dollar? And like, how, what are some of those types of skills that they need to develop?
So something that I've done, I'm part of a couple groups, coaching groups, and that's
Hmm.
helped me to sell better to my client, to identify my client, because again, um, it's these higher communities. There's a community, right?
Hmm.
And one person knows the other person. They're not gonna go off of, like I said, like a Facebook or anything. Something that we do is that it's so simple. We do a lunch and learn. So every time we have a new product, we call our general contractors, our designers, and we say, hey, we're really excited to show you this new product that that I think it's gonna work. We basically do a bunch of samples, and then we show up to their office and bring burritos and just say, give me an hour of your time, and then we'll show them all these samples, and they fell in love with them, and now they go sell it for them. That's really worked for us. So I don't know. I think that would be great for someone trying to start. Get a list of people in your area. So if you want to get the high end, sales, see what area, are those houses in. See who manages, either a GC, maybe there's a designer, maybe there's a couple architects that you can get
Hmm.
a hold of, even real estate agents, right? And then create a package, something, those finishes, have them touch it, have them feel the difference, right? Something that we do that really sells. I like to do an average or just your standard finish that doesn't feel that great, and I have the
Mhm.
next better one next to it. And I'm like, look, this is your comparison. This is what your
Mhm.
average painter is gonna sell, and this is what I'm selling you. And that sells pretty well.
I love that. Yeah, I love the like sample board kind of idea that you're talking about. I think too often, especially at the higher point of the market, we in the painting industry assume that everybody understands that there's a difference. It's not. There's you know we use like Sherwin Williams products or whatever, but there's just like different layers of or levels of like products for different projects, right? And a customer might hear it's a Sherwin Williams product, and hey, that Sherwin Williams makes great paint. Like your Sherwin Williams, like there's these two quotes are the same thing, and they're not because somebody using I don't know Sherwin Williams Emerald and somebody else using Promar 200. Again, there's a time and a place for each of those products, but they're not the same. And I think too often as contractors or as salespeople, we're not doing a good job of educating people on the difference there. And I think
Yeah.
pictures worth a thousand words. Like being able to have something like a sample board, like you described, is it sounds incredible. Just to be able to like, don't take my word for it. Like, which one do you like better?
Here it is.
Yeah,
Correct.
yeah.
Touch it, feel it. I mean, it's just not the picture. Something too that we do. So most of the companies that we use, uh, no one really knows about them. So they're Italian products or,
Hmm.
from Germany, whatever it is. So they don't know about these products. But these companies have a very unique type, a group of clients, and these clients know about those products. So when we go and approach them and say, hey, help me sell your product better, once we train with them, we build a relationship with, now what they do, they add us to their network. So now we are their preferred stallers or finishers. So that really helps too, because now they're selling you. They're like, hey, who's calling for what area? And they're like, hey, I have illusions here in your area.
Mm,
They're great. They've been, pre-qualified by us, and they're gonna do great by you. So that's another
Mhm.
way that we use our resources there.
yeah, smart.
That's great. So one thing that PaintScout actually talked about, which I think is really really important for people who sell painting projects, sales professional sales reps, business owners in our space, is that you talked about selling on site,
Hmm.
and it sounds like you're bringing samples, you're meeting with the customer.
Correct.
Are you actually closing deals like this on the spot? How does that work for
Uh, it's very tough. I mean, we do
you? Mhm.
sell we do close some deals, the smaller ones on the spot, by using PaintScout and just having our production rates, we can close a small project on the spot. But some of
Yeah.
these other bigger projects is very complicated because you have, first of all, we go and do an assessment, and then, like, we just came from one that they want to do Venetian plaster or lime wash. And we have stage one, stage two, and stage three. So now we have to go back to our shop and create a sample specially for that project. And
Mhm.
once they like that sample, then now we can say, okay, based on this sample, this is roughly what it's going to cost you. And then from there, we close this deal.
Yeah.
Um,
But
so a lot of the work. Go
would
ahead.
they be pretty much like sold before that though? Like if you're doing samples, are you charging for that, or are you just doing that to try to win the job?
A lot of those stuff I do them to win the job, but our
Yeah.
closing ratio is like 80%. So most of the clients that they're calling us, they're not calling 20 people. It's just
Mhm.
weird. Like the job we went and looked at today, they have their painter, but their painter cannot do the type of work that we do. So now
Mhm.
when we go in there, it's just a matter of negotiating the finishes, and most likely they're going to be okay with the cost, because they understand that they're going to spend their money on that, and then they're going to save on somewhere else. So, but we
Gotcha.
build that relationship, we build that value already into that business.
When so when you're saying like selling on the spot, That's more like presenting the finishes, presenting
Hmm.
the like the experience,
Yeah.
communicating the value, and then after that, it's not always price. It's just that there's a multi-stage process in these kind of higher end projects and getting the end result they're looking for. Is
Yeah,
that
but
it?
so the actually that is true. So
Mhm,
some of these projects, understand that some of these projects, like we're in a project right now where we're getting close to 3 years now in that project. It's a house, it's a residence. So you can only imagine the amount of, it's just so much that goes into it. Some of our projects can be between 6 months to a year and a half to paint a
mhm,
residence. Talking about 8,000, 10,000 square feet home, inside and out, cabinets. So there's a lot of moving parts. But you and I were talking there at PCA, and
mhm,
so we operate almost as a commercial, uh, you know,
mhm,
business because we do 30-day net. Our jobs will get signed in, I don't know, today, and we don't start the project until like 2, 3 years from now because it's going to be
mhm,
built. But that brings a lot of that makes a lot of issues on a cash flow. So that's why I
mhm.
started Kevin selling smaller projects. Our smaller projects are roughly about $10,000 average. And so those are the ones that he can sell on the spot. And
Mhm.
the way we do those is they're usually like a refinishing cabinets, painting a few, rooms in the house. And Kevin's been training to do that. He's done the Jason Phillips training. He works
Mhm.
with Chris Moore on the. He started something where now all the sales reps from every company they meet together every month. So that's been helping them train, and so that is
Nice.
helping. So now because he carries his little iPad, he has his templates, and
Mhm.
he can do the sell right on the spot for those smaller projects, and those help our cash flow. So we are moving into that department too because sometimes it's very hard to finance these bigger projects because you're a few 100,000 on the whole at all
Mhm.
times.
Mhm.
You mentioned before that you sell at a really high percentage, right? Your close rate, I think you said, was
Hmm.
like 80%.
Says
The
high 80s.
Yeah. The When you're doing those like smaller res repaint work that you just talked about Kevin selling, does that hold true, or does that
No,
high win rate come down a little bit?
that comes down. That comes down because those leads are more, we're probably gonna have to compete with a couple other
Yep.
painters. I think he was like a 48%,
Yep.
but we don't have a lot of data yet. But when now that we have PaintScout, we have Jose and then we have Kevin. So those are the two logins, and so I can see how much Jose is selling and how much
Mhm.
Kevin is selling. But why? So one of the reasons why our closing rate is so high is because most painters, I think that they want to have new clients. Oh, I want
Mm.
new clients. I want new clients. And probably on the very small, the smaller projects, probably that's the case because they never repeat. It's always a new one. But for us, it's a lot of repeated clients, a lot of repeat customers. So something that we do where I think most of our income comes is from maintenance. So what we do in these homes, most of the homes we work on are from $1 million up. And so something that we really got so good at a few years back is like understanding that this is not just your house, this is an investment. So
Mm.
how can we protect, how we can maintain your investment? There's a lot of wood outside here and a lot of metal, and we're right on the ocean, so the metal gets corroded, the wood, fades. So 6 months, when we sell a project, we say, hey, in 6 months we want to come in and take a look at how your house is doing. We're not
Mm.
expecting anything to be wrong, but if we missed anything, I want to take care of it at my own cost. In 8 months, roughly, I'm going to come to the south side or certain areas of the house that maybe are fading because of the sun. You probably allocate maybe 20% of your budget and we'll put a maintenance coat. And then a year and a half, we're going to do the same. So you're saving money by maintaining your home. And every time we go back, they have a referral for a neighbor, or they want to do something new. So that's been our strategy, and that's worked out very well for us.
Yeah, that's great. I think a lot of people forget that they have customers they've done work for before.
Hmm.
Exactly. Most
Everyone's
most
like,
of us, yeah.
where am I going to get the next lead from? It's like, well, you're probably going to get it from the person you did work for before. And so I think that's a really good point you just made that everyone should remember listening is that the the best jobs you're going to get are from your network and from people you already know. And so when you're thinking about things being slow, we've talked about this in the podcast before, but it's like how do you stay in contact with people in a really good, healthy way?
That's why you have a CRM.
That's why you have a CRM. That's why you do
Right?
things like these unexpected intentional touches where you call or text someone, "Hey, how you doing? How's that job working?"
Yes.
Surprise, surprise, I need my whole house painted again. Why? Because
Oh yeah.
everything always has to be painted.
Yeah.
Always. Like I just painted
Always.
my hallway at my house. One day later, I could probably repaint it.
No,
It's
usually
Because
great.
you
what
have little
happens,
kids.
yeah, no, usually it happens.
Exactly.
They're like, you're talking about the exterior, and then you're like, maybe I've been thinking about the living room. It just needs to be something changed. And then we're always constantly seeing all these social media trends and stuff. So
Mm,
we come back and they're like, oh, by the way, remember how I talked about the living room? I was like, yeah, I convinced my husband, and what do you think we should do? Perfect. Here we are again. And so
mhm,
that really helps a lot. I've learned this from a couple guys at the PCA. So this is not me, right? This is just taking all this information from someone and saying, hey,
mm,
your best client is your existing client,
mhm.
because you don't have to prove yourself. They already trust you. They already know you. So if you stay with contact, I think that a very large amount of painters paint a house and they walk away. There is no follow up. Most clients, you ask them and they're like, well, how about your painter? It's like, you know what? Never heard from him.
Yeah.
I think that's something that can really change, and that can really help your sales.
I think it's such a strong takeaway is that like you said, you guys actually don't even want leads. like and there's a truth to that I think for every business after a couple of years is that actually
Mhm.
those new leads can be kind of annoying. They're a bit of a runaround. Like
Yeah,
our win rate on new leads is so much lower than the win rate on referral or past customer, and yet we invest everything in the new lead. It's like,
correct.
what's your marketing budget? Oh, I spend that all to get new leads. What do you spend to engage with your current customers?
Yeah.
Oh, I send an email twice a year, or I don't do anything. It's like, wow, okay, this data is not really lining up very well. So,
No, that's
um,
very true, and that's very
yeah,
common in the industry. I think,
mhm,
especially now with this whole lead generation and how do I do things. We can't do like door hangers. We can't. There's a lot of do not no trespassing, no, all these things in our state. Our state is so tough with that, so we can't really
mhm,
do any of that stuff.
yeah,
So
that's yeah, and I think one of the things we found on this podcast, we get a lot of feedback from listeners saying, it's great. We love hearing from these people doing incredible things. They're inspirational, but what can I do? Because a lot of people aren't in the NDA
yeah,
territory one,
exactly.
and like
Yeah,
a lot of
and I get
people,
that.
yeah, a lot of people are listening, saying like, "How can I implement this?" And I think maybe we could just take a couple like minutes here and just and look at what you're doing and see how could we actually implement this for say a smaller business, maybe some of the ones you talk to at a Sherwin event or at the PCA. Do you have anything that you feel is worth sharing that like, hey, I've learned this in my space, but here's what you can do in your space.
So, I mean, I can relate. So, something that I
Yeah.
would like to say to anyone who's listening to this, we're not in any pedestal. We're not
Mhm.
in any special place, because we have struggles just like anyone else, right? They're just at different levels or with different circumstances. Right now, we're in a growing phase of the company. So, yeah, we have these steady leads, but now I have to create a whole new section or sector of the company so that we can grow. So that is my biggest challenge right now, is how do I bring new clients? And talking to you last time, it really gave me a whole new sense because I wanted to get a bunch of leads and I just wanted to go out there and send Kevin and just sell work and sell work. But I had to come back and really analyze like, what is my market like? And I think
Mhm.
that a lot of people will say this like, you can be in any market. Let's say you're in the metro area, right? Okay, how do these people get their leads? Most in the metro area, I understand that people they don't have time, to sit down with the client or anything. So they're more like social media, more direct mail and stuff. If you're
Mhm.
in a rural area, it's probably more of a personal touch. So I think that it starts by really identifying your market
Mhm.
because you can't really go and try to sell anyone if you don't know that market. And I think that most of us don't really pay attention to that. We want to skip those steps, but those are the steps that are the more that are really going to give us, that that result. So being in Phoenix this yesterday, Phoenix is a big market and it's a very competitive market and it's not the most expensive market. So you have guys who are competing. So I have here between 2 months, the company is between 2 months in existence to guys who have been in their business for 15 years. They're they all don't have any type of data on their business. They don't have an estimating system. They don't have a CRM where they can, track these things. Um, so they don't understand their market. They're just out there trying to get jobs.
Mhm.
So if I can give someone, take some time to understand your market. I don't know if they're gonna probably sound me like, yeah, well, what does it sound like? I don't know, I mean, ChatGPT, Google, I mean, you can do that. Another
Mhm.
thing too is like if you have smaller jobs, I know Facebook, groups are great because then you start hearing like, what's going on in your neighborhood, what's, all these things. Start being involved. Us, in order to get into the smaller projects, we now became part of the Chamber of Commerce for different areas in our here in our area. And now I show up to these events. I'm the only painter there. There's hundreds of painters in that area. So now, I start getting more networking. That networking works so great. What are you doing after your job? Are you
Mhm.
spending an hour meeting with people who can potentially, connect you with someone? I think we're relying so much on Google, on social media, but that personal touch, I think, will really get you a lot further if you're not in the metro area, of course.
Mhm.
Yeah, but I think personally, like I agree with everything you just said, and I think even if you are in like bigger markets, right? Like you mentioned Phoenix or whatever, these markets are huge, and I think
Hmm.
painting contractors can make a mistake where we're trying to like serve like the whole market, or
It's
not just like geographically, but even like the varying price points within the market. We
correct.
do whatever apartment turns and high end homes, and it's just like those are two completely different customers, two completely different markets. Even if they happen to be 10 minutes apart from each other or whatever, it's just like a completely different type of work, type of selling, type of marketing. And I think from one of the things that I've learned here is just like or relearned, I guess, is that like you can run an exceptionally great business in like a niche market. You don't have to try to serve every single client. Find the clients that are like the best fit for your business, and then like speak right just directly to them.
Correct.
Would you agree?
Everything that you do has to be catered to that client, you know?
Mhm.
And I think that's important. I know it takes a while to get there. I know that it takes for us to be very disciplined because,
Mhm.
when you're hungry and you need to sell a job, sometimes you don't sell the right job. And I think that's a very tough thing to be disciplined. But again, I don't think the industry is taking advantage of all the available, systems and like I said, CRM is just an amazing thing to have. I mean, for you to be able to remember your client, have some notes that they have a dog that likes this treat, or the way their front door sits, or their plants that they have. Is you got to be able to communicate that to your client. And I've learned this through the PCA, because there's some, I mean, we're not reinventing the wheel here. This is all been there, and I've learned a lot from Nick Slavic, because he has data for everything. So he can go back to this, look at that, and say, oh, I can move this.
Hmm.
Interesting that something that you said earlier, right? When you get slow. Last year, we finished a lot of these bigger projects, and we're like, okay, what do we do now? We go back to our CRM. I sat down with my team and say, okay, guys, we're gonna hit every person we have for maintenance. We're gonna reach out to everyone we have. Within a week, we were busy again,
Hmm.
but because we have those resources. But I will guarantee you that a good, I don't know, I can't say an amount, but a very large percentage of our industry do not have that type of data.
Hmm.
Or
So
even understanding what to do with it. Like you said, hey,
correct.
just let's reach out to people. That's sometimes a foreign concept to a lot of people I talk to.
Yeah.
Just like, have you ever called your past customers? Oh, oh, that's interesting. But they finished the job. It's like, yeah.
Yeah.
Have you ever called them? So
I think it.
yeah, I
I'm
mean,
guilty, man. I did it
oh,
for
I
many
am too. I am
years.
too.
Yeah.
Every time it got slow, I'd be like, what should I do this time? And then I'd call Michael and I'd be like, Michael, I'm slow again. What should I do? And he'd like pull out his piece of paper and be like, this is what we talked about last time. The world's
Hmm.
not ending. It's not that hard.
And
Thanks, man.
something that we need to understand as business owners, we don't have to do everything, because that's the conception, the misconception
Hmm.
that I don't have time. I don't have time. Nowadays, again, use your resources. There's VAs, there's people who can come and make phone calls for you for an hour, so
Mhm.
they don't have to be on your payroll. So I guess as something that I really, really try to focus when I have these conversations is like, look, it's a mindset that we need to develop into, that we're not the technician anymore. We need to think as business owners. And how, there's a book of who, not how, right? Like, how can I, no, it's not how I can do this. Who do I have in my network? Who do I have that I can rely on to go do this for me? So it's really building ourselves. Our business is, I said this one again, our business is never going to surpass us. If we don't keep educating ourselves, our business is never going to grow. And
True.
that is a fact.
Absolutely. I want to go back to one thing you guys were talking about. And I might be another question, but we're talking about finding the right customers.
Hmm.
And I think sometimes, for me personally, it's been easier to think about the wrong customers and to work with my team a little bit. And as a someone who's sold a lot of painting projects, I don't want to bring the wrong customer in and convince them that they are the right customer, because that's just
Mm.
going to be bad for everybody. And so, like, understanding, like, we're not um, an apartment turn business. That's not us.
Okay.
But being able to say no, here's what we actually like. We don't do that. Oh, what do you actually do? Oh, we do high end stuff. Makes a lot easier for the team to understand how to operate, how to speak to people, and when a no is actually like a good thing. So for those listening, I mean, like, thinking about those really bad customers you've had over the years and trying to identify why that wasn't a fit could be helpful to start to understand who you want to work for and why. Because I think that's where we get a little lost sometimes. Is like, that sounds great. I'd love to work with the customers that fit well,
Hmm.
but who might they be? It's like, well, go to the bad ones first, and then figure out how to never let that happen again. And then maybe you'll see what you do well.
But you
I
gotta
think
have a
too.
big. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, go ahead, Juan. You're the guest.
But you gotta be able to. You gotta be able to have a record. You gotta be able to have
True.
data in order to look at that stuff, because then that it goes back to that. So if you
Mhm.
don't have any data, then how can you identify that? So, and you're gonna go through those. Trust me, I'm not sitting here, oh, we're perfect. Oh God, we get into these jobs and it's like, what was I thinking? And we're like, okay, finish it right. But that's something that we've always done though.
Mhm.
If we get into a bad situation with the client. We are going to finish and we're going to do our best job. I know we're lost. I know half through the job. I know we're lost, but guess what? I want to finish that job just as great as if I would have won money.
Mhm.
And then after that, I don't have to come back, but I don't want to lose money, lose a client, and have a bad reputation.
Mhm.
So that's something that you really have to think about.
It's that long-term mindset. It's building these customer relationships for life, and you know, building these relationships with the community and things like that. And I think like that's where it
Correct.
starts. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah, because you do your marketing, right? So if you're a new business and you want to start being known in the area, Google, Facebook, it is going to help you. It is going to put your name out
Mhm.
there. You're not going to get the greater leads and stuff, and that's fine. It's going to get your name out there. So use that for that reason. But then after that, try to, now shift into that more relationship part of it. But yeah, do use the Google, use the Facebook. That is a great way to get to know for people to know your business. So I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I think you
Mhm.
just really have to understand what it's really meant for.
Mhm. The last thing I want to touch on, I know we're kind of getting to time here a little bit, but you've got a cool perspective. You're on the PCA board, as I mentioned at the beginning. You get
Mhm.
you go around the country, you speak at these different industry events, and so you have a unique perspective on like the industry as a whole. I'd love to hear just kind of your perspective. Where do you see the industry headed? What are significant changes that you've seen maybe over the last few years, and how might they be impacting our industry?
Ah, cool. That's a cool question. So, social media, AI, there's so much out there. I really do love that there's so much out there, but at the same time, I think it's kind of like the double-sided sword.
Mm.
Some people just see everything. Who posts on social media the bad stuff? Really, nobody. Nobody really sits there and say, "Hey, guess what? This is going so bad." Every time you see something on social media, it's going great. It's going great, and you have a lot of these, influencers who make things like, "Oh my God, if you do this, you're gonna be a millionaire." It doesn't work that way, So social media is great, but I think that it can be very hurtful for many companies getting started. Um, many years ago, we didn't have a cell phone. Well, yeah, well, I think we did have a cell phone, but it wasn't, in order to get any information, it took days. Now you have it at your fingertips. So I just had this conversation in Phoenix, and I said, look, I can sit here and tell you about how to do so many things, but if you sit there in front of ChatGPT or Claude or any AI, system, it'll do that for you.
Hmm.
So I really think that we're moving into an era that we need to learn how to use our resources because I say dinosaurs like me, if we don't get with the times, this new generation is gonna leave us in the dust.
Mm.
So all the personal, interaction and stuff is great, but how can we incorporate some of these really amazing tools nowadays to help us get there? You know, simplify our lives. I've seen the shift in our area. When I first started painting, it was Italians that ran the uh, the industry. Then we have then it started moving into like now the Hispanics were the helpers. Now the Hispanics are kind of taking over.
Mhm.
But as Hispanics too, we don't know, we don't have a lot of knowledge about the business. And so for us, we just want to be busy.
Mm.
And to be honest with you, that tends to bring the industry down because
Mm.
now you're not worried about the quality and how much value you're bringing. You just want to be busy. So meaning that your price is going to be lower.
Mm.
And so as we educate ourselves, understand that we need to have profit. And so that's where I've seen the industries changing, because now putting these events together, having someone like you guys, putting all this information out there, it really gets into people's minds to say, hey, I'm not just having a job. I need to make money for myself.
Hmm.
And something that I've learned from Nick is that if you have a business that brings more than $1 million a year, and you have a structure, you can make 250,000 uppers, more than that a year. A doctor's making $200,000, so there is so much money to make here.
Mhm.
So okay, I guess we need to really use the resources. We need more people like you guys to put more of these content. We more of that PCA events, bring in 200 people into these events, and for them to just kind of get that little light bulb going off and like, I can't be this low. Out of those
Mhm.
200, if we can close on 10, that's amazing, you know? So that's where I seen the shift. Back in the days, we didn't have anything like that. It was very segregated. Now it's like all the information is there. So that's what I've seen the industry. You have a lot more available to you. You just have to be able to want to go get it.
Hmm. Love it.
So maybe we can just quickly recap that one. So for those who are listening, the places you would go to get that information or get started: PCA.
PCA.
Anywhere else you'd recommend?
This is not to really have any preference, but
Yeah.
Sharon Williams is one of the only companies who actually has a lot of systems and a lot of aid. Like you can go
Mhm.
with them, and they have, like trainings for you painters for free,
Mhm.
and, at their learning pathways, and it's in English and Spanish. So these companies are putting a lot of money into these programs to you to be like have a certification that you actually done that. So if you want to bring your guy and put him through like 5 weeks of this small training and the most simple stuff, that helps.
Hmm.
PCA also has the painters training, the painters accelerator program, which is
Mhm.
like, anyone that is between 500 and 1.5 understands more how can you take your business to the next level. And it's like $800, 7 week program. This is something that, God, for the price, you can't go wrong. you
Hmm.
know there's social media, there's a lot of YouTube great videos. I mean, you guys, with your systems, like I mean, just talking to you last time, I've learned a lot. Networks,
Mhm.
the BNI, your local chamber of commerce, just start being involved.
Mhm.
Start getting out of the brush and start being involved. What's in your community? What association is in your community that you can become part of it?
Hmm.
It can be a construction association or anything. From there, you start building that network. And I think those are the resources that we have available to us.
Yeah.
I think Juan
And
would
so,
agree that everyone should subscribe and like the Price Sell Paint podcast for sure. I think he was
Of
about to say
course, you better. You
you
better.
better.
shameless over here.
Shameless,
Of
I mean,
exactly.
you
course,
mentioned it before.
no.
I mean, Nick Slavic's got an awesome channel with Ask a Painter Live.
Yeah.
There's no shortage of good information. There's some bad information,
There's
I would say, in our
there's
industry too.
there's a little bit of bad.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, there's people
Questionable,
trying
the
to,
least.
yeah, I mean, there's people trying to sell you stuff and whatever, and there's whatever. But again, there's a lot of like really good information in our industry, and I think like you know, if somebody's willing to go out and find it and put the work in, then yeah, sky's the limit for sure.
Something that we had this discussion at PCA one day. I know we're almost done here, but a lot of times too, and I want to be direct to some of these guys as well, because a lot of times it's like, okay, but what does PCA do for me? What do these things do? What does Sherwin Williams do for me? What does PaintScout do for me?
Mhm.
A lot of it is like we put out the resources there. It is up to you
Mm,
what you do with them, right?
mhm,
Mhm.
That's something. So if you want to scale up your business, or do something with your business, understand that you have to put in the work. You know,
Mhm.
the
Yeah.
resources are there. Understand that you have to, if you're working 8 hours, 10 hours a day, you're gonna have to put a couple more hours there a day to get to where you want to be. So a lot of these new generations are like, yeah, I don't have to work hard to make money. I'm sorry, but even a creator has to work hard. You know,
Mhm.
uh, we all have
Yep.
to work hard. I think that's where really the success is how much effort, how much you work at something.
Yeah. Dude, Juan, really appreciate you, man. I think
Yeah.
for all those listening, it's great to connect. I think if anyone, do you encourage people to reach out to you? Is that something you
Oh
do?
yeah,
Or
yeah, I
yeah.
do. I honestly, I drive around in my truck, and there's always today this morning I talked to three people, and so I don't talk to a lot of people in my area, but I do talk to a lot of people, throughout the country. There's great people. I love to talk about business and systems and
Mhm.
why paint is not working. So, reach out. I mean, all my
What's
resources are here.
Should we put some contact info, or is that going to just blow up
Let's go.
your?
Ah, do
What's
it.
the best
Do
way
it.
to reach you, Juan? If someone wants
So
to talk,
I do social media. A lot of people reach me out through social media,
okay.
and social media is usually just they reach out to me there. We'll talk, and then if it's something that just like you mentioned something, John, our time is very valuable. But when I
Mm-hmm.
really see someone who really is interested and really wants to do that, I am
Yeah,
willing to give my time for that.
great. So reach out to Juan on social media, guys. Happy to help. Juan, you're such a great
Yeah,
impact in the Hispanic community and the PCA in general. It's great to learn from you, see what you're doing, and always a pleasure to chat. So um,
of course. I'm
we
expecting
will
my
have you.
my PaintScout hat.
It's coming, man. It's coming. I have so many things. I have
Okay.
an NDA. I have a hat. You're
Oh
gonna.
God.
Yeah,
Your
yeah,
hair's
Jennifer,
yeah.
too good looking for a hat.
we're putting you to work, man.
I
I
know.
know.
It's my work
That's the one
project.
thing that is still holding on, man. It's getting white. If you see, man, it's churning.
Uh,
It's churning.
That's just
Whew.
signs of wisdom. That's all.
Oh
yeah.
God. No, that's signs of my back is giving out, my knees giving
Well,
out.
I mean, at least you did what you're supposed to do, and you started to, work yourself off the brush, and you built a business that doesn't just rely on you. And I think it's a good model for everybody.
Now,
So,
there's a lot of great role models out there. I've learned a lot from many guys throughout the years, and all I'm trying to do is just kind of give back a little bit of what I've learned. I mean, I
yeah.
didn't do any of this stuff by myself.
Mm.
All these guys like Nick Mays, uh, Nick Slavik, so many other guys there who really, really have paved the road for us. So trying to give back a
Awesome.
little bit of that.
Amazing. Juan, thanks for being on here. Guys, like
Cool.
Michael said, if you
Thanks, Juan.
enjoy the podcast, like and subscribe. It just helps remind us that this actually is worth doing. So feel free to do that. It's great for us. And
Yeah.
then hit Michael up on LinkedIn. So, all right, guys,
There you
thanks
go.
very much. We'll see you next week on Price Sell Paint.